Converting your tires to tubeless is actually pretty simple. All you're gonna need is some tubeless valve stems, some tire sealant, and a pump. Let's go ahead and get into it. Now, back in the days when I rode BMX bikes, we had stuff like this tire slime right here to prevent us from getting a flat tire and having to walk our bikes home. Or we had like these rim strips. It was like this plastic strip that went on top of your tube that helped a lot with those like goat head thorns and stuff like that that would give you a flat. But these days you can do what's called a tubeless conversion. Now, most bikes come standard with the inner tube in it, and if you go to the manufacturer's website, you can check your bike may already be capable, like this one is here, with tubeless ready rims and tubeless ready tires. So if you already have tubeless ready rims and tubeless ready tires, tubeless, goodness gracious, learn how to talk, then it's a pretty simple upgrade to do. All you have to do is basically take the tube out, throw these valve stems in, add some of your favorite tire sealant right here, pressure it up to get that tire to seal, and you'll be ready to go. Keep watching to the end. You guys will see just how simple this is, and if you've made it this far, smash that like, it helps the channel out. All right, so the first thing we gotta do is get these wheels pulled off the bike because you're gonna wanna be able to get that tube out of the rim, and you're not gonna be able to do that if this thing is connected to the bike. Always wanna keep a close eye on that through axle right there. Either put it back into the bike or put it somewhere safe. You don't want this thing falling on the ground and getting dinged up. Not that I've ever done that. Actually, I've set it up on the back of my truck bed when I was working on this thing trail side and had it fall off the truck bed and get all dinged up. Definitely don't want to make that mistake like I did. Since this bike was already pressured up with tubes in it, that means that the tire is already sealed onto the rim. So when we go ahead and take this off and when we unseat this one side from the rim, it's gonna be pretty easy to get this thing to pop back on to the rim, and you're pretty much only gonna need a floor pump if your bike already has tubes in it to get that done. Don't believe me? Check this out. All right, that air is just about all out of there now. So I forgot to mention, you're also gonna need your favorite set of tire levers. I like these ones from Pedro's right here. Pretty nice, heavy duty set of tire levers. When you're getting this, trying to get this tire off of the wheel, it's easiest sometimes to start by pushing the bead of the tire like that. You hear that pop off right there. Push the bead of the tire a little bit more in towards the center, and that's gonna give you a little bit more room to work, make the tire just a little bit more loose on that wheel and make it a little bit easier for you to get this one side over the rim. Then you're gonna go ahead and pull this one side of the tire over the rim right there, being careful not to mar up these brand new rims. All right. You can just kind of slide it through like that, but you just want to be careful that it's not too tight. Like I said, you don't want to go scratching up, especially if you got some brand new rims like this that you'd rather not destroy right off the bat. Just go ahead, bring that all the way around, go back right up here to the valve stem. I already took off that little, the piece that threads on right there. I already took that off when I was letting the air out. Pull the valve stem up, over, and then just pull the tube right on out. This tube right here, you can go ahead and finish letting the air out of it, wrap this thing up, and then you can just go ahead and throw that on your bike, in your pack or whatever, so that way you have an extra tube in case if you ever get too big of a hole for that tubeless tire sealant to seal. All right, now that you got that tube out of there, you wanna go ahead and grab your valve stems. What did I do with those ones? There they go. All right, so they make ones like these Muck Off right here, pretty popular brand. They come in lots of different colors. These ones I'm gonna actually be using on my son's bike. The one that I got for this bike right here is from a company called Trail One. Brian, if you guys know him from BKXC and Worldwide Cyclery, has this company. I'm not sponsored, but I just like to support guys that are doing good things, that are fellow mountain bikers that I respect, and definitely watch their videos. So let's go ahead and get these valve stems out. These should just be in a standard black. I didn't want to do anything too fancy. I was scared if I got orange valve stems that they wouldn't quite match the other color oranges I have on there. So you can see these come with the valve stem, and you can see right there on the valve stem, it's got these little slots in it that's gonna let the air pass through, and you're gonna go ahead and put that in there. It's gonna let the air pass through this valve stem, and then this tire is gonna seal onto the rim right there, and you're gonna use that sealant in there, and that's gonna help also with the tire sealing onto the rim. And when you get any flats, I'll talk a little bit later when I put the sealant in there about just how this stuff works. And a pro tip for putting this stuff in, there's definitely a way to do it right and a way to do it wrong, so keep watching. All right, so on these tubeless valve stems, you're gonna wanna take off the cap, take off that lock nut right there that's gonna lock it on to the rim once you get it in place. And then if there's a little rubber O-ring like that, you're gonna wanna pull that off as well. That's all gonna go on top of the valve stem once you get it in there. Now pay close attention to, you can see like the shape of this, how that is right there. Based on how your rims are, you can tell on these rims that it's got just kind of a sloped shape to it. Some rims will have a squared off, kind of like a flat edge. You can see that when you get these Muck-Off brands, they come with multiple different rubber pieces right there for the valve stem for different types of rims that you might have. So you can see right there the hole that we got the tube, that we pulled the tube valve stem out of. We're just gonna slide this right on into there. Boom. You can see on the top right here that this rim, that's another thing I forgot to talk about. I would have to put rim tape. This wheel set, I already checked on the manufacturer website. It already comes with rim tape in it. You can see right there the tape, the line of tape that's covering up the top of the spoke nipples. So these wheels already come taped and ready. And you can see right there what I was talking about, where you're gonna wanna make sure that rubber is in good contact with that. If I had a different shaped wheel and this wasn't quite fitting right there, I just would wanna make sure that I had the right adapter or the right valve stem to fit my wheel. Got that tubeless valve stem in. Now we got that little rubber O-ring. We're gonna go ahead and put that back over it. And then we got that little lock nut right there. Go ahead and twist that up on there. I love on these valve stems, that little T1 right there. It's just the little things that count, you know? And you can see right here on the top of the valve stem, there's a little Allen or hex bolt right there to where you can go ahead and get in there with a little Allen wrench and get that thing tightened up. So I'm just looking at that rubber O-ring right there. I'm not gonna tighten this thing up, like over tighten it. I'm just kind of looking at that rubber O-ring, making sure that it's compressed. I'm gonna go ahead and look up at the top. You can see on the top, that rubber's compressed down. Looks like it's got a pretty good seal on there. So I'm just gonna give it another half turn, and then I'll go ahead and call it good. From there, I got this thing up on the bench. This is kind of the easiest way for me to do it. And I'm gonna go ahead and take this tire and start pushing it back over the wheel right there. You can see right here, this is the bead of the tire right here. And then on the inside of the rim, there's another little portion on the inside of the rim right there, a little lip that bead is gonna catch on. So you're just gonna want to head and push that tire over the top of the rim. You want to go all the way around and leave just a little bit of the tire off right there, because you're going to pour your sealant in right there. And here goes the pro tip that I was talking about earlier. So how does this sealant work? Well, in this sealant, you have a liquid base to it that has like some kind of adhesive properties to it. And then inside that liquid, you have a bunch of tiny little particles that act as like a coagulant. So as you get a hole in your tire and the liquid starts to spurt through it, there's those little particles, those little kind of, I don't know what they are, like little coagulant particles that will then gum up and plug that hole as your tire spins, as you keep riding, or as you go ahead and rotate it over to let more of that liquid disperse out of the tire when you get a puncture in your tire, that is. So one of the things though you have to be careful for is, as these bottles of tire sealant just sit there on your workshop bench or in a basket you got or something like that, all of those little particles, those little coagulant particles, will settle down to the bottom of this right here, or any kind of tire sealant that you're using. So you want to be careful to make sure that you mix this up well before you go ahead and pour it in there, so you don't end up with a ton of liquid and none of the little particles that it's going to take to actually seal a puncture when you get one in your tire. Another little pro tip I like to use is, I like to use a little bottle like this. So I'll have my big bottle right here, and some people will use like a measuring cup and measure and pour it in there. But I also like to have a smaller bottle like this, because what it'll let you do is, first of all, you can fill this up to measure it. I like to use one of these full bottles per tire right there. A little bit more sealant than's required, but I like to have a little bit extra in there. I'm not a weight weenie, not worried about that. But also another thing about this is, this little bottle right here has a small little spout right here on it that you can go ahead, if you need to top off your tire sealant, like later on, tire sealant will dry out over time. You can go ahead and just remove the valve stem and stick this in there and squeeze this bottle in through that valve stem to add some extra sealant if you need to do it for future rides. All right, so just kind of tossing that, mixing that up right there, not shaking it, you know, like crazy, just making sure that this stuff is nice and stirred up. And go ahead, it's a brand new bottle, so you gotta take the top off of it first. I'm gonna top off my small bottle right here to kind of get my measurement of how much sealant I want inside this tube. This is when it's helpful to have an old shop rag or something, because this stuff can be a bit messy and kind of nasty to clean up. I'm taking that bottle, I'm gonna go ahead and just pour it into there. And me trying to film this, of course, I make a huge freaking mess, and I show you guys exactly what not to do, but that's why we got that little rag right there. All right, now that we got an absolute mess of tire sealant everywhere, we're gonna go ahead and finish with this tire, getting this thing put back onto the rim. So I'm gonna go ahead and use my tire levers now, those in there, get this tire pot back on there. So when it helps, a little technique if you're having a hard time is you can push the rest of the tire kind of back into that center right there, and that'll give you just a little bit more space to work with to be able to get this tire popped back over. All right, now just wipe off any excess sealant that you got, especially if you were a little bit sloppier like me putting it on there. Now on this tire, since we had a tube in there before, one side of the tire is already seated onto the rim. The other side of the tire is not, because that's the side that we went ahead and popped off. It's the side that we popped off to go ahead and get the tube pulled out of there. But now it should be pretty simple, even just with a floor pump like this. Now this is a high pressure floor pump, so I got the low pressure switch and the high pressure switch that I got right there, but it's not too hard. Let's see how this works. Filming and working on a bike at the same time is sometimes a pain in the ass. So now I'm just gonna go ahead and crank this thing all the way up to about 30 PSI, maybe a little bit higher, maybe a little closer to 40 PSI. And you should hear a pop in just a little bit. Going to the high pressure setting. There goes one pop. Here goes another. All right, got that tire pumped up pretty firm. Got it just above 30 PSI. Now what I'm looking for right here is I'm looking around the edge to try and make sure that there's this little line just above the bead that you can kind of use to see if your tire is seated on there all the way. If this line is really close to the rim on some spots and really far away on other spots, then what you can do is just go ahead and kind of roll the tire out like that. And sometimes if it hasn't popped, you can get it to pop on that way. But this thing looks like it's seated pretty well. So now I'm just gonna go ahead, get that sealant kind of swishing around in there. There goes one wheel finished. That was pretty quick. That was pretty easy. Let's move on to the back wheel and get this thing wrapped up. And you guys, make sure you don't lose your valve stem cap. I've lost these before. It can be a pain in the butt. Then you end up having to buy a whole nother set of valve stems just to get the right colored valve stem cap when you got fancy anodized ones like this. And that's how easy it is to do the tubeless conversion on your guys' bike. If I can do it, you guys can do it. I'm not a professional bike mechanic. If you guys have made it this far, definitely hit that subscribe button. I got plenty more videos coming. This is my new Marin Alpine Trail 7 that I got right here. It's what I call like a budget enduro bike. So I got future ride and review videos. I got upgrades I've already been doing to this bike. So my next video I'm gonna be posting is gonna be the top 5 essential upgrades I think you need for any mountain bike, even if you got a brand new one like this right here. Thanks for taking time to watch today, because it's not about me, it's all about getting you guys stoked to go ride and have some fun, people.